Alright, it's Sunday and it's time for a quick guide of the Nightmare Corridor and the Cursed Realm. In this video, I'll show you guys my teams of the Nightmare Corridor and Cursed Realm, and I'll also show you guys two Chinese guides for both the Nightmare Corridor and the Cursed Realm. The Chinese guides are, well, they're pretty good, but they're more catered towards bigger accounts, whereas my teams, well, it's more catered towards my account, and hopefully some of you guys can replicate it as well. This is my second recording of the video because I ran out of voice, so I'm trying to speedrun this video before I run out of voice again. I should probably just bring a water bottle with me when I record this video. I'll do that for the future. For the first team here, Scarlet team, right? One thing you can do is if you're able to use Thane in the last team, you can use Baden and Trashia in this team. But for me and for most people, I think Scarlet is much better in here, and it's a much more cheap option. As for the collections, nothing of note in here. Put a strong collection on Scarlet though, because she's the only damage dealer. Other than that, I guess you could just copy the base from collections of my heroes. It should be said or noted that this is a RNG round. It swings anywhere between 19 seconds to 26 seconds, and sometimes the team doesn't even kill the boss for me. But yeah, here I got a pretty nice hit with 21 seconds on the Scarlet team. Next up, here we have the Seal team. There are two variations of the Seal team. There's the Awakened Saphir version, and then there's the Awakened Lyca version. Now, for most people, you want to use the Awakened Saphir version because that frees up Awakened Lyca for the last team. But again, if you can use Thane in the last team, you can use the Lyca version, which is faster for the Seal team. Now, for the Saphir, I'll show you guys both the variations later on. But for now, let's just look at my teams, right? So for the Saphir team, this is pretty much the team. A few things you can do in here. You can throw out Crashio, and you can put in Naruko as well. She's also good in the Seal team. As for the collection, yeah, nothing matters. I mean, mine are all pretty bad. I guess this one is a +1 collection, but it has terrible stats. So yeah, it doesn't really matter too much. Just make it work, or try to make it work. And if you can't make the Saphir version work, stay tuned for the Lyca version later on in the video. Now, for this third team here, whales and bigger accounts are able to use Awakened Baden, or an Awakened Baden team in here with Awakened Solace. But for most people, I recommend that you use Scarlet in here, and then you use the regular Baden along with Trashia. And for Trashia, you need her engraving 30, otherwise the team will not work. I recommend using this in here, and then Scarlet in here, and then Solace in here, as I'll show you guys when we get to that team. So yeah, here's the collections. I don't think anything matters in here. Again, I guess this is a +1 collection, but I doubt it really matters for this team. Again, we just focus on a high attack on Trashia, and we're good to go. Next up, this is the Athalia version. Here, there are a few things you can do. Before you do anything, though, you need to make sure that Ivan ults Athalia. And you can always just check the replay, right? And that means Athalia has to be the highest combat rating hero. So, as you can see here, once Ivan ults, he jumps onto Athalia. And if he doesn't jump onto Athalia, the team doesn't work. So you have to make sure Athalia is the strongest hero, as you can see here. For me, he sometimes jumps on Palmer, but I fixed that by maxing out my warrior tree. But if you don't have a mega Palmer like me, that shouldn't be a problem for you. As for heroes, there are a few variations of this team. One thing you can do is you can use a Liberta and Orthos variation, but that fucks up this team for me. But you can do it if you can free it up for this team. Another thing you can do, which is just a variation of my team, is you can use the Dancers, Adrian, over Mortis. If you have him at, I believe, at +30 signature item, Adrian is better than Mortis. For me, he's 1 second worse at +20. And then for Damon, if you have Awakened Chimera, she can be used instead of Damon. However, for me, it's slightly worse, but for some of you guys, maybe it's better. Here are the collections. I don't think anything matters, but one thing that might matter is this type of collection on Damon. So if it doesn't work for you, try out this type of collection on Damon. But yeah, here's the next team, and this is the Vika team. Now for Vika, I think she's here to stay. I'm strongly considering tossing her signature item up to a +30, because it looks like she will stay for, well, what, 5 or 4 months. And for that, I think she's worthy of a +30 signature item, but I don't want to invest in her if I could stay in the top 200 without having to do so. But that's just something of note, because her +30 signature item is really strong for her damage. For this team, notes, As you can see, Vika does all the damage. And why does she do all the damage? That's because, if we go into the battle real quick, Liberta has to link Vika and the boss. So as you can see here, once Liberta ults, he links Vika and the boss, and that's what you have to make sure happens. And to ensure that happens, if you run this variation, the only real contester for the lowest combat rating spot is Lorsan. But for me, to make sure that Lorsan was stronger, I just tossed this fat HP collection onto him, and that fixed it for me. So she Liberta linked Vika. For the collections, other than Lorsan, it's pretty standard, right? Bunch of attack on Liberta, but yeah, I mean, and this type on Daruko, but other than that, nothing of note really in here. Lastly, this is where I'm using a Merked Awakened Lyca. If you're a bigger account, you can use Thane in here, freeing up Lyca for this team. And then you can use other teams of 1 and 3 as well, which I'll show you guys in the Chinese guide. But yeah, for most people, Lyca is the hero in here because she's pretty cheap. Or, I mean, I guess she's not cheap, but many people have her over Thane. And for most people, she also works better than Thane. Now, for me, my own Lyca wasn't strong enough, or she was strong enough, right? The team worked, but the time was around 30 seconds. Whereas this Mega Lyca that I merked from a friendly whale, yeah, obviously a lot better, right? 9 seconds difference. For the collections, I mean, nothing really mattered for me because Lyca was so big. So yeah, nothing really mattered for me. Atheus wants Insight, but that's just a general thing. I guess he has a +2 collection for this round, which adds a bit of damage. But yeah, I believe this Lyca could, I mean, she could probably solo it, right? Because she's so strong. But yeah, those are my teams. As for overall improvements, this team could be improved a bit with RNG. This also with RNG. Here it's pretty stable. Here it's pretty stable. This team can go down to 23 seconds, and this team, I've seen it hit 20, but yeah, it's also pretty stable around here. So I'm not willing to retry anymore. But what I am willing to do is show you guys a Chinese guide for this round of the Nightmare Corridor. So again, shoutouts to Ferrara, who posts these, as you can see today, on the crowdsourcing Discord server. He posts these guides from the Chinese, I believe Chinese guide makers. I'm not actually sure where he finds them, but he posts translation notes, and then he posts the actual guides. Wow, English is truly a struggle today, it seems. So as you can see here, for the first team in the guide, they're using the Baden Trashir team, which is where I use the Scarlet team. But yeah, if you're a bigger account, and it basically comes down to if you can use Thane in the last team, then you can free up Lyca for the Seal team, and then you can also use this instead of... or you can swap this team into the first position and then skip out of Scarlet and use Awakened Baden in the last team. But yeah, if you can make Thane work, then you can try this team and the first team over Scarlet. And then if you can make Thane work, you free up Lyca, and then you can use the Lyca Seal team, which is faster. Otherwise, as you can see here, this is, well, I guess it's similar to what I use. I don't use these two heroes, I use Crasio and Vithil, but yeah, it's the same idea, right? So if you can free up Lyca by using Thane in the last round, then you can use the Lyca Seal team, which is faster. Otherwise, you use the Sophia Seal team, and in here, right, here is where I use the Baden, normal Baden and Trashir comp, because I can use Scarlet in the first formation. But if that's not something you want to do, or if that's not something you can do, here's the Soulless Baden version, right, for the third round. But the thing about this Soulless Baden version is, as you can see in here, and also what it's marked in red in here, is she kind of needs the +2 Rowan collection, along with another +1 Rowan collection. So it's pretty collection based, and for me, I just can't replicate that, and thus I'm not using this team. Here, when I looked at the at my team, right, I talked about the Orthos and the Liberta version, which is faster. As always, when you use Orthos and Liberta, you have to make sure Athalia has the highest attack and Orthos has the lowest HP, right? But yeah, I'm not using this version because, again, I'm not using this version either, but I need Liberta in this team, and thus, yeah, it's not really something I can do. But I guess if you can free up Liberta, you can try out this team for yourself. The version that I use is not listed in here, but it's similar to this version. I guess it's just Dancers or Mortis over Awakened version of Chimera. Now here, as you can see here, they're using a non-Liberta version in this team with the Vicar. However, they use Rosaline, and that conflicts heavily with Skarlet in round 1 for me. So this is not an option for me at all, because without Rosaline, both the Skarlet team and this team breaks. Thus, Rosaline is required for the Skarlet team, and thus I can't use this variation. But if you don't use the Skarlet team, you can try this out for yourself, right? And I guess here you can see some different variations, but I haven't played around with this myself because I need to use Skarlet in round 1. Here, for the last team, as you can see, I talked a lot about Thane, and here's the Thane variation for those of you who can do it. But yeah, I mean, I even tried borrowing a big Thane, and I wasn't able to make it work. So yeah, you can try it. I don't recommend it. It's pretty much just a waste of time for most accounts. It's not better. Even some of my Walia friends can't make it work. So yeah, I wouldn't bother wasting my time on that. I'd just pretty much just copy the way I set up my teams. But yeah, I mean, it is here if you guys care about it. Right. That does it for the Nightmare Corridor. Let's head over to something less fun, which is the Cursed Realm. I guess we start with my teams and we can move into the guide. This is probably my least favorite Cursed Realm round, because there are many RNG teams and there's also a lot of min-maxing you have to do with, well, mainly gear, but also collections to make the teams work. But let's just take it one team at a time. So for the first team, it's the Awakened Baden team. If you have Calthan, the new Hypogean hero, he can go in over Queen. Also, if you have Nyla freed up, she can go in over Kren. Here are the collections. Yeah, not much to note in here. I'll go more in depth on this team once we head over to the Chinese guide. But yeah, this is one of the less RNG teams for me anyways. It's pretty much a stable 10 billion damage. What is not a stable 10 billion damage is this team, which is like a 7 to 9 billion damage, I want to say, team. It's the Seal team. Again, I'm using Melisandre, but I can show you guys a variation without that later as well, because not many people have her. But yeah, again, it's the Seal doing all the damage. You use Eugene with the SP effect, energy regen and stuff, right? He's really good against this hero because of the drain life effect, which he turns into energy for the team. And you CC and lock out the enemy team. It's a fairly cheap team, right? Nothing in here is expensive. Only Melisandre might be like a luxury unit. Here, all right, so here you have to pay attention. And I'll make it as short and precise as I can. So, for this team to work, you need to make sure Liberta is the strongest hero, and you need to make sure that Orthos has the lowest HP. And how do you know if that's occurring? Right. All you need to do is you check your battle replay, other than checking your damage, and you make sure that once Liberta ults, she links Orthos and Lorsan, but just make sure she links Orthos once she ults. And once Orthos ults, Liberta is the one to move, right? So two things. One, Liberta needs to link Orthos. Two, Liberta needs to move during Orthos ult. Said in another way, Orthos needs to have the lowest HP, and Liberta has to be your strongest unit. Alright, so how do I achieve this? Pretty simple, really. Rem is my strongest hero in here, so I remove Rem's collection, making her the weakest hero, or a weaker hero, and Liberta the strongest. And my lowest HP hero is Sonya, but removing gear from Orthos makes him my lowest HP hero. So that's a simple fix, and that's how I did it. Another thing, side note, Lucilla was actually my second strongest after Rem, but after removing or giving her a weaker collection, Liberta was now my strongest hero. So that's the gist of this team. As for variations of this team, if you don't have Rem, or you don't want to use Rem or whatever, you can use Vithil. And if you don't want to use Sonya, you can use the new dimensional hero from the collab. I'm not good with the names, but it's the chick hero, the pink-haired one. You can use her over Sonya. And another thing, you can also try to use Helios over Sonya, but for me that did not work at all. Another thing, this team is extremely RNG dependent. It goes from 8 to, well, for me 17, but yeah, don't expect good hits from this team. It just takes retries. But As long as you make sure the heroes are linking the correct heroes, you should be good, and it's just up to RNG. A team that is not up to RNG is this team, which is pretty poor because I don't have Lucius, which is a reoccurring theme for my Cursed Realm videos. But yeah, I don't have Lucius, so I'm doing a non-Lucius variant. There are 2 variants of this. If you can free up Awakened Chimera, and you can free up Awakened Chimera if you have Gavious. I'll get to that later on in the guide. But yeah, for me, I don't have Gavious and I don't have Lucius, so this ends up being my best Team 4. It's not good, right? But, I mean, it's better than nothing, and 6 billion damage is 6 billion damage after all. And it can do like 7 or sometimes 8, depending on RNG. Alright, so you thought the third team was RNG dependent. Well, let me introduce you to Belinda, who is also just an RNG fiend for this round. Now, for this team, things you have to make note of. For me, popping a +1 collection onto Jerome made this team a lot more smooth and made the RNG a lot better. Another thing for me, Gavious can be used in here, and he can do 16 billion damage even at Legendary over Chimera, but it's a monster RNG check. It happened once for me, and I tried a lot of times. So yeah, use the Chimera version. It's a lot less RNG for me. If you have Gavious built, you can play around with it. I guess I'll show you guys the Gavious version once we get to the Chinese guide. But this is what I did. For the last team, now, I thought I had this team figured out. But there's a few things you can do in here. So, Braun is good. You can also use like Rain or other support heroes. I'm using Braun. He doesn't need any investment. If you have him, use him. He seems pretty good. The thing that made the biggest difference for me for this team is actually collections, which I don't like to say, but +1 collection on Athalia made 4 billion damage of difference. And you might be thinking, wait, so your collection is good? No, this is a terrible collection, but the +1 skill on the dancers just made Athalia do infinitely more damage. As I said, it jumped me up 4 billion damage on this team. So if you have +1, a +1 dancer collection available, pop it on Athalia, and that's the main difference. Alright, so those are my teams, right? Again, it's an RNG fest. I could probably hit higher. I'm not willing to spend diamonds to do it. But what I am willing to do is show you guys a Chinese guide on the Cursed Realm. That basically clears up a lot of best in slot, or if you have different Awakened heroes from me, then this guide will help you out with that. So again, shout out to Ferrara, who posts these on the crowdsourcing Discord server. And let's just head into the guide. So, as you can see here, the guide, I believe this is the Merc priority, and I'm merking Baden, so I agree. The first team doesn't work without Baden, so you need him, and the last team doesn't work without Athalia, so you need her as well. Great. As you can see here, notes on this, the pink-haired chick is used, the blue-haired chick is not used. I don't know, I'm not sure if he's still bugged. He was definitely bugged on release. He's had, 2 or 3 bug fixes now. I don't think it's enough. He probably needs more. But yeah, for now, she's definitely outshining him, at least in the Cursed Realm. So, here's the first team. Again, you can use Calthin. You can even use him at Elite. I tried Calthin at Elite. I was able to hit 1 time high with him. Queen was a lot more stable. But yeah, I mean, he is someone you can use, especially if you don't have Queen. Another thing you can do is you could use Authors in the 3rd position. But yeah, both of these are preferred over that. Again, you can use Nyla. For me, Nyla wasn't better. I used Kryn, and the rest of it is pretty much the same. For the Seal team, so here are some different things. If you have Brutus, as always, he's really good in the Seal team. And as you can see in here, I'm using Melusina because I don't have Brutus in the 5th position. I'm using Melusina over Brutus. Another thing I'm using I'm using the, what's he called, Eugene in this team as well over Khazard. But yeah, the Seal team, you just have to play around with it pretty much. There are many good heroes you can use in the Seal team. It's pretty much these heroes. Also shout outs to Joan of Arc, who can be used in the Seal team. And I guess Matriarch can be used in here, but just stick to these teams if you can, right? Right, so here's the the place where this pink-haired collab chick fits into the Curse Realm. Should you pop her trial? I don't think so. She's gonna be here for what, 2 or 3 months as a free-to-play player, and I believe her trial will be more significant later on. So yeah, I would hold on her trial and just use Sonya instead. But yeah, again for this team, it's the same as I said, right? You need to make sure that Liberta is your strongest hero and that also Authors has the lowest health, and then this team works. But it's still RNG. Now, if you have Lucius, you can use this Lucius team. If you don't have Lucius, you can use this team without Lucius, with Solis and with Chimera. But that is only an option if you can use Gavius in the Belinda team, as you can see down here, right? Now, this exact formation was able to rival this formation for me one time, within, I don't know, maybe 10 or so hits, right? So the RNG aspect on this one is super high, and that's why I ditched it, because I could not be bothered. So I went with this, and then I went with I believe, yeah, then I went with this variation, right? Because I don't have Gavius built. But again, I was able to do it with legendary Gavius. So if you're willing to spend an ungodly amount of diamonds, you can definitely make this team work even with lower Gavius investment. And then last but not least, here's the Thalia team, right? And as you can see here, I'm not using dancers, I'm using Trashea because I don't really have the dancers at any investment. And if you don't have either, I guess you can use Kren. And if you don't have Braun, who works at, well, I mean, very low investment, I guess you can use Yoren as well. I think that's it. One thing I do want to... do I really want to find this? I kind of want to find my my Belinda hit with Gavius. So as you can see here, right, it did 14 billion damage with a legendary Gavius. But I want to find the one that actually did well. As you can see, it's pretty stable, 13. But I know for a fact I hit 16 once. Nah, I don't think I'm going to be 15. Now I'm kind of committed now, aren't I? 12, 8. Okay, we give it 2 more and then I can't be asked. Well, that was the other formation. All right, that was a bit scuffed. But yeah, TLDR, use my teams. If you can't use my teams, you look at the Chinese guides. Another thing, I'm getting my ass kicked in the Treasure Scramble right now. I think it's time for me to summon soon, which I will do once the raid buffs hit, because my rankings are slipping. I guess these are my current 3-team formation. Don't look at these teams. They were bad. This was just an experiment. I'm jumping back to my old teams, which look like these. Basically, I'm throwing Leica in here, and I'm doing a SEAL team down here instead. And yeah, this should be a lot more stable. This is also what I ran early on the round. But yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I'll see you guys next Sunday.